So, with lightning speed of applause, please put your hands together. Please help me welcome on stage none other than Vivek Gambhir. It's such a delight to have you here with us, Vivek. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Monica and the MMA team for inviting me. As we were just mentioning, the topic is when machines do marketing, what do marketeers do? And if you believe some of the current AI commentary, the machine will write the brief, make the film, choose the audience, optimize the media, read the results, and possibly ask for the CMO title by quarter four, which leaves marketeers with the important job of nodding thoughtfully in meetings. I don't buy that. AI will do more of the visible work of marketing, but that makes the marketeer's invisible work more important. Deciding what the brand stands for, what it should be trusted for, and why it deserves to be chosen. So the better question is not what can AI do, it is what will marketeers now be responsible for? And that fits in very well with the agenda of this conference because this is not really a day of marketing in the old narrow sense. The conversations that Monica has curated are about AI, attention, discovery, measurement, enterprise value, and how marketing shows up in the language of business. So I want to start with something very ordinary. Think about how someone chooses a skincare product, a diagnostic lab for a parent, a mattress, a credit card, or a hotel. Until recently, the journey was messy but familiar. Search on Google, open a few links, check a marketplace, read reviews, maybe visit the brand site or ask a friend. Now imagine the same person asks an AI assistant, I have pigmentation and sensitive skin. I live in Gurgaon. I want something under 2000 rupees. I prefer fragrance free. What should I buy? In that moment, the consumer may never visit your website. She may not see your landing page. She may not watch your campaign film. She may not even know which brands are considered and rejected. She just gets a short list. That is the moment I want to examine today because it is not just a technology moment, it is a marketing moment. The consumer still has a need, the brand still has to earn trust, the product still has to deliver, but the route from need to choice is changing. So the question is not simply how will AI help us produce more marketing? The question is how will brands get chosen when choice itself is getting mediated by AI? And if that is the question, the marketer's role cannot be just to use AI better. It has to design the conditions under which brands get chosen. Memory for people, evidence for machines, and value for the businesses. But before we get to machines, let's step back though, because marketing has always had a deeper job than producing messages. When we talk about marketing, we usually start with the most visible things: the campaign, the film, the post, the media plan, the tagline, the dashboard. Those things matter. They are what teams review, debate, approve, measure, and sometimes lose sleep over. But most choices are not made at that visible moment. By the time someone chooses, a lot has already happened. A name is sitting somewhere in memory. One option feels a little bit more familiar. One claim feels a lot more believable. One brand feels a lot less risky. One price feels easier to justify. Take something as easy as booking a hotel. Two hotels may have similar ratings, prices, and locations, but one feels safer because you've stayed there before or someone you trust has mentioned it. or the photos feel more credible, or the cancellation policy is clearer. You may call it a rational choice, and it is, but a lot of emotional risk reduction has happened before the click. That is the part of marketing I want to focus on, not just the message, but the conditions that make one choice easier than another. And if marketing has shaped those conditions, AI matters because it is changing them. Seen this way, AI has marketing has moved through three broad eras. First, brands fought to be noticed. That was the age of attention. Then brands fought to be found. That was the age of intent. And now we are entering a third era, recommendation. Brands will fight to be recommended, not only by people, but by machines that increasingly sit between people and choice. The compression is where the battle starts to move. And that's why I use this phrase, intermediated choice. It is not a beautiful phrase, but it's quite useful. Marketeers are always already used to intermediaries, retailers, marketplaces, search engines, social platforms, influencers, algorithms. But AI is different. A marketplace sits between a brand and a transaction. Search sits between a brand and discovery. AI can sit between the consumer and the decision itself. The human still has the need, the human still uses the product, but the discovery, the comparison, the ranking, the recommendation, and eventually even the purchase may be handled by a system. That changes the question marketers have to ask. It is no longer only how can we persuade the consumer, it becomes how can we become the brand that people trust, machines recommend, and businesses can profitably scale. And that is why I think the future of marketing is not simply more persuasion. Most consumers would probably say there's plenty of persuasion around them. The future is about becoming more recommendable. I don't mean that in an algorithmic sense, I mean it strategically. A recommendable brand is something that consumers care about. It has evidence that machines can parse, and it creates value that businesses can feel. All three matter. So a marketeer has to hold three things: human desire, machine confidence, and business value. We'll come back to that, but first we should be fair to AI. AI's potential in marketing, as all of you have seen and heard, is very significant. It is changing the clock speed of the function. Marketing has always wanted to get closer to the consumer and closer to the business outcomes. AI gives us a chance to do both, provided we don't treat it as just another cheaper production engine. Imagine a marketing system that does not have to wait until the end of a campaign to learn. It senses demand, it generates options, it tests ideas, it adapts content, it reallocates spend, it learns while the work is live. That is very different from the classic rhythm of brief, create, approve, launch, and measure. It is no longer only about production, it becomes judgment. What signals matter? What variant is worth scaling? What consumer response is noise? What should the system be allowed to change? And what should the brand never trade away for speed? That is where the marketeer becomes a lot more important and a not less. And that's where the paradox begins. AI will make marketing easier to produce. That is very good news. But it will also truly make valuable marketing harder to create because the basic capabilities, speed, testing, personalization, optimization, will be available to everyone. So if everyone has speed, speed alone is not strategy. If everyone has personalization, personalization alone is not intimacy. If everyone has more content, then more content is not meaning. A lot of the AI conversation is being framed as how much more can we produce? But perhaps more was never the real problem. The more interesting question is what will all this extra output build? And that is the risk I want to talk about next. AI can help a team produce work that's perfectly acceptable. The copy is clean, the visual is on brand, the targeting is sharper, the dashboard looks fine. And yet, the brand may not have become stronger. People may not remember it more. They may not trust us more. They may not be willing to pay for it. They may simply be seen as more competent communication from a brand that still has no clear point of view. And that is the part I worry about. Before asking, how do we use AI? Marketeers may need to ask something more basic. What is the brand's own way of seeing the world? Because AI can help express a point of view, it cannot invent a meaningful one for a brand that does not have it. And let me show you an example. Cadbury 5 Star has spent years building a world around doing nothing. So when everyone starts celebrating AI because it makes people more productive, 5 Star sees the same moment differently. It almost says, maybe that is the problem.
Man,
How much longer?
2 days?
Arey, use some AI and finish it fast now. Send it to me in 10 minutes.
Is AI really helping us work less like we thought? Or making us work even faster? Because it's only going to get worse. If we're forced to keep pace with super efficient AIs, will we ever get to just sit back and do nothing? 5 Star presents Make AI Mediocre Again. We've built the world's first.
See, this works because only 5 Star can say it, right? A productivity app cannot make the joke. A consulting firm definitely cannot make that joke. And a premium skincare brand cannot make that joke. The point is not the technology, it is the fit. The AI anxiety enters the world of 5 Star instead of 5 Star entering the AI conversation like everyone else. So, in an AI era, the best question is not what is our AI campaign, it is what does AI look like through our brand. That is one side of the story, how a brand stays distinctive. Now, let's look at the operating side, because AI is also changing how marketing gets done. For a long time, marketing had a familiar rhythm. That rhythm will not disappear, but AI will put a different rhythm around it. The system can send signals earlier, generate more options, test rough ideas, adapt messages, and learn while the campaign is still alive. So the marketer's job is not only to ask, is this campaign ready to launch? It is to ask, what should this system learn? What signals should we trust? The old rhythm was built around producing campaigns. The new rhythm will be built around designing learning loops. But even if we redesign the work inside the company, the bigger disruption may be outside the company in the journey the consumer actually takes. In the digital era, brands fought to be found. You optimized for search, you bought keywords, you fought for the top result, you built landing pages, and created content to pull people in. But in an AI intermediated journey, the consumer may never arrive at your site. She may ask, the machine answers, the brand may be summarized, ranked, recommended, or ignored before she sees the experience you've carefully designed. So the most valuable real estate may no longer be the first search result, it may be the first answer. That is a very different challenge. It means brands have to think about visibility and memory in a very different way. Brands have always tried to build human memory. That still matters. But AI creates a second kind of memory, machine memory. Most marketeers are trained for human memory. The next generation will need to build both. Once AI begins to influence what gets remembered and surfaced, it may also begin to influence the decision itself. Till now, even when the journey was messy, we assumed there was a person doing this choosing, the searching, comparing, asking friends, hesitating, and buying. But in most situations, the person may now start delegating parts of the choice. The human still has the need and experiences the outcome, but the search, the comparison, the filtering, and the recommendation may increasingly be handled by an AI agent. So, marketers will have to think about two audiences, the person with the need and the system helping the person choose. And that changes one of the oldest questions in marketing. For a century, marketers asked, who is our customer? Now, marketers will also need to ask, what is our customer? Because the decision maker may be a machine acting for a human. For decades, we studied human bias. Now we will also have to study machine bias. So, what makes a brand chosen in this environment? I would suggest a very simple frame, the new choice stack. For a brand to be chosen in the AI era, three things must work together: human desire, machine confidence, and business value. The marketer's job is to hold all three together. Human desire asks, do people care enough to choose us? Machine confidence asks, can AI understand, compare, and recommend us? Business value asks, does choice create profitable growth? One trap in AI is talking too much about use cases. Those are useful questions, but they're not enough. I think it's so important for us to think about value cases. If AI is framed as a productivity tool, it will get you pilots. If AI is framed as a business value engine, it will get you transformation. The marketeers who can translate AI from we need more content to we change the economics of choice will have a very different conversation with the CEO and the CFO. So, what does it mean for the marketer? If the role is defined as producing assets, managing campaigns, and operating dashboards, AI will compress a lot of the work. But if the role is defined as understanding how a brand gets chosen and recommended, the marketer becomes more important. That is why I like the phrase architect of choice. The new marketer builds memory for people, evidence for machines, and value for the business, not as three separate jobs, but as one interconnected responsibility. When machines do more of the marketing, marketeers cannot merely ask, what can we produce? They have to ask, what are we responsible for? And the answer is choice. Let me make this practical. If I was sitting with a marketing leadership team, I would start with 5 questions. First, what are we trying to be recommended for? Second, what human memory are we building? Third, what machine evidence are we creating? Fourth, what business value are we proving? Fifth, what must remain unmistakably human? Let me close where we began. Marketing has always lived close to choice. It shaped what people noticed, remembered, trust, and bought. AI does not move marketing away from choice. It moves marketing closer to the architecture of choice. That is why this is not a small moment for marketeers. It's a much bigger one. But only if we stop defining marketing but what machines can now produce and start defining by what great marketeers can build: desire, trust, proof, memory, preference, and value. If we get this right, the marketer's role does not shrink, it becomes more consequential. The marketer is no longer asking, what should we communicate? The marketer is asking, what makes this brand worth choosing and worth recommending? In the next era, the winning brands will not be the loudest, the fastest, the most personalized, or the most optimized. They will be the ones that deserve to be recommended by people, by machines, and by the business. Thank you very much.